Hello, everyone, and thank you for attending today's webinar. Stay productive while keeping data safe with Microsoft Intune for Education. Before we begin, I want to cover a few housekeeping items. At the bottom of your audience console are multiple application widgets you can use. If you have any questions during the webinar, you can submit your questions in the Q&A box and they will be answered at the end of the presentation. You can also expand your slide area by clicking the maximize icon on the top right of your slide viewer. If you have any technical difficulties, please click on the help widget. If you can please take a moment to fill out the survey at the end of the webinar, that would be great. We will now begin the webinar with a quick video.
Literacy is so important, and it's my job to help the kids grow in that and to see the value in that and to break the mindsets of like, oh, I'm just a bad reader, I don't like to read.
I don't have to worry about other people just looking at me and staring at me. It's just reading to myself, sort of, but on camera.
When I came across Reading Progress, I was able to say, hey, I've assigned a passage to each and every one of you guys at your reading level. I want you to record you reading this passage. I was surprised that when the whole class came back, literally within 10 minutes, everyone was already done. Having that recording, I'm able to spend ample amount of time to analyze, and instead of using my instructional time, it allows me to use my planning time to figure out how do I intentionally approach every student. The whole class, this is what I'll teach them, and maybe this one specific individual student, I need to address with him or her this specific area. Reading Progress has really motivated a lot of kids to work harder and kind of gave them ownership of their learning.
Well, as a mother and an educator, you know that the conference with the student is the most powerful piece. It's not necessarily them reading and recording. It's what you do with that reading and with that recording. And she's able to capitalize on that even faster now.
It probably helps me be a better reader because I can actually listen to myself. And if I did say a word wrong or something, I'd be able to say it better than next time because I know that I said it wrong.
Struggling readers, they struggle, so they avoid reading, and by avoiding reading, they struggle even more. And so it's been really cool to watch how my kids are, reading more at home. They're more excited to read in the classroom. They have their personal goals that they've made, not me, and so they're excited to work.
Coming from an administrative perspective is that this isn't just a classroom tool. Because we have so much access to data, that this is a powerful tool to change the learning trajectory of a building. But watching her grow in her reading, it's been a joy for me. I used to love reading as a child, and I wanted that for her.
Now that we use the app, I'm more confident. I'm less worried about it. I get worried about a lot of things, but reading now is one of the things that I'm not worried about anymore.
I want all of my students to get to the point where they know what it feels like to get lost in a book.
Favorite part is when I get to a really interesting part in the book and then I can't stop reading it, and it's really fun.
All right. Good morning. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sean Struzek. I'm on the U.S. Education Partner Ecosystem team, and I'm joined today by Jody Lefevre. This mission statement alone is why I came to work at Microsoft almost 5 years ago. And the cool stuff we're doing in education, like what was showcased in that video, is why I'm always excited to get out of bed and in the morning and work with Insight and with schools like yours to showcase the power of Microsoft in education and how it's not only changing the way the students learn, but also how teachers are teaching and how administration is running their schools. And I've got an invested interest in technology implementation at schools, as I've got a 9-year-old in 4th grade and a 5-year-old that just started kindergarten. And I want to ensure that they've got the best technology, not just what's good enough. And that video really hits home personally, as we struggle a lot with our son with reading, and I would love to have had this reading progress used in our school. So I don't want to take too much time away from Jody's presentation on modern management, but I'm going to take take you through a short overview of some of the great things Microsoft has to offer. Now, this is going to be a very, very high level, so because we just don't have a lot of time, and there's just so many really great things specifically designed for education that we're putting out, I just don't have enough time to go in depth. But if there's anything that sparks your interest, please don't hesitate to reach out to your Insight rep, and we can set up a discussion with more time. Now, to kind of sum up very, very quickly why Microsoft Education, it's very, this slide is really great. It really shows, in its most simplest form, what we're thinking about and what's important from our perspective in Microsoft for Education. It starts with affordability, right? We know that budgets are tight, budgets are strapped. We're trying to get the best technology into the classroom at the most affordable price. But a lot of people don't know, right? A lot of schools don't know that we've got full Windows 10 Pro devices starting at right around that $220 price point. And these devices are full Windows 10 Pro devices. So you can ability to use your favorite desktop apps, or even, again, using your web apps, and the ability to work online and offline, and the compatibility we all expect from our devices when it comes to USB and peripherals. We also want to make sure that we're bringing equitability into not only the device, but the whole total solution. So a lot of you are probably very familiar with Office 365. We wanted to simplify the licensing purchase process and bring it into a singular SKU called Microsoft 365. Now, Microsoft 365 takes the best of Office, but adds a bunch of other components into it. A lot of things that schools have been using and buying a la carte. We wanted to bundle it all and, again, make that buying process a lot more simple. And also, we want to make sure that you're taking full advantage of the licensing capabilities with our student use benefits. So as long as 100% of your faculty and staff is licensed for M365, you get student licenses for free. I'm going to skip over manageability because Jody's going to go into this in more in-depth and detail. But I want to talk about productivity. Productivity is key in the classroom, certainly when we're talking about implementing technology. And as we've all seen over this last year and a half, implementing technology in a remote environment or a hybrid environment and continuing to utilize that in the classroom has been a significant challenge. In my personal journey over the last year and a half when we were remote, we had 4 and 5 different applications that were pushed down from the district for us to use. Now imagine a 3rd grader and a teacher that's brand new to this technology to, parents and guardians at home trying to help their students. It was a very, very difficult feat. And now again, I know our district utilized what they had and tried to implement it, which was great. They made some tweaks and changes over summer, but ultimately at the end of the day, they could have taken all 4 or 5 of those applications, chat, video, assessments, assignments, curriculum, and actually utilize Teams in a singular platform to do all of those things. Teams is so widely adopted not only in the commercial space, but also the education space as well as that leader in remote, hybrid, or even on-premise learning. Obviously, Office 365 is paramount to students for the jobs of today and tomorrow, so they need to be inundated with and utilizing the Office suite of products because they will be utilizing that out of school. And we like to throw some fun things in there like Minecraft and Minecraft Education Edition. It has over 500 free lesson plans that teach collaboration, creativity, critical thinking, computational thinking. It also has a coding application in there to get kids started with coding. I mean, my son's been playing Minecraft since he was 5 years old, and imagine his teacher saying, hey guys, tomorrow we're going to play Minecraft. Man, he will be so excited to go to school the next day. I won't have any issues getting out the door, and he will be attentive in the classroom because, hey, let's create some game-based learning within the education realm. And we also want to make sure that we're including an inclusive and accessible classroom. Microsoft is putting so many tools into all of our products, whether it's Windows or into Office, that really are addressing the needs of all students, no matter where they are in their learning journey. And ultimately, we need to make sure that the schools and students' data is safe. There are too many bad actors sitting in school districts probably right now just waiting to strike, and they are education marketplace is so heavily attacked by malware and phishing emails and all kinds of security issues because unfortunately they're the most vulnerable. A lot of students don't know, right, if their identity is stolen until it's many, many years, and they go and find out they apply for a credit card and find out they've got, other credit on their records because their information was unfortunately leaked out of the school district. Microsoft is a security company. We're up and to the right in 5 of Gartner Magic Quadrants, one of those being the Endpoint. Now, if we think about why Windows devices for education, we really bring this into, these three categories. Microsoft has more than 5 times more integrated assistive technologies than our competition solution, like real-time translator, and one of the most powerful tools for reading is the Immersive Reader. We have a bunch of cognitive services, right? So speech recognition, text-to-speech, ink recognition, Bing's autosuggest. And we also include a lot of our devices have pen and touch capabilities, which provides that tactile gestures that our students are used to. I mean, I've got an iMac sitting in my kitchen that has fingerprints all over it, right? Because my kids have grown up on devices that they can touch and interact with their hands, and it's so odd and so foreign for them not to be able to have that capability. When we think about classroom security on the devices, built-in things like Windows Defender Smart Screen to help students protect against unsafe websites, ads, and downloads, keeping students safe in remote Teams classrooms and meetings with safe features like Student Lobby and administration tools to set up a safe chat. Multi-factor authentication is one of the easiest things to implement to make sure that those devices are safe. And then built-in threat protection like Windows Defender Antivirus to help detect and block malware. So a lot of third-party applications you may be bringing into your technology, we're building it into our technology to help save you time and money. And then we've all, like I said, we've all experienced this remote and hybrid learning approach to being on-prem. And Windows and our OEMs have the biggest portfolio of devices out there from any price point, configuration, or persona. We've got to make sure that we're wrapping not only the device into the environment, but also within that technology solution. And that's, again, core to those things is Office, OneNote, Teams, Microsoft 365. And Microsoft Education provides teachers with free training, a bunch of professional development and tools that they need to be ready for whatever scenario of learning, whether it's remote, hybrid, or in person. So like I kind of mentioned, we've worked really, really hard and really closely with our OEM partners like Lenovo and HP to bring down the cost of these devices to make it easier to select a Windows device when budgets are tight. But this is just a starting point, right? Windows and our OEMs have the largest selection of devices across any price point, configuration, and persona. And so your schools can be outfitted across the board utilizing Windows, which eliminates that hassle of having to manage multiple operating systems, saving IT time and money. And we don't want you to go it alone. We've got free professional development available for your teachers and administration. This offer is good through the end of December. It actually more than likely will probably be extended, and it's also backdated. So if you have purchased or are looking to purchase any Windows device less than $399, or any Windows 2-in-1, so all the convertible laptops that have pen and touch capabilities above $399, you're eligible for this free PD offer. It starts at just 15 units. It's 1 hour training, up to 300 units, and that's 20 hours of training. Easiest, very, very simple approach to get this implemented. We'll send this deck out to you, but you can click on that Global Training Partners or look it up in Bing, and you'll see a list of partners that some of you may have actually worked with for some professional development in the past. Go ahead and select them. You simply email them with your invoice and say, hey, I just bought a bunch of these Windows devices. I'd like to collect my free professional development. If there's any issues, please reach out to your Insight rep. They can connect with me and we can make sure you're up and running with this successfully. And Microsoft really aims to help unlock limitless learning focused on these 3 core areas. We know teachers spend a significant amount of time and energy trying to reach each of their students and create this inclusive environment where every student can succeed. And not only do they drive curriculum in core areas like reading, writing, and math, they often shoulder the responsibility of ensuring all their students feel safe, secure, and have an equitable access to learning. This universal design for learning is a flexible framework that enables teachers to approach meeting this diverse need in a new way. And it drives teachers to collaborate, which their students in turn drive classroom collaboration. It gives learners multiple ways to acquire knowledge, tap into learning interests, and motivates them to assess themselves, driving them to demonstrate what they know, and teachers become more facilitators in the learning journey that is student-led. We know through research that learner motivation and actual learning increases when learners have a stake in and are treated as co-creators in that learning process. So meeting those needs of today's diverse learners and helping them build life skills has never been more important. In a world where 30 to 40% of future jobs will require explicit social and emotional skills in addition to core knowledge, the role of the educator is critical in helping these students build these 21st century skills. However, the student-centered learning content and approaches are in high demand and unfortunately low supply. But we've got a really great tool called that Immersive Reader. This Immersive Reader is built into almost all of our products within the Office suite, even included in Bing. And this Immersive Reader can improve reading comprehension by upwards of 30%. And students who use digital pens instead of keyboards scored 30% higher on science problems. And 98% of surveyed teachers say Minecraft alone has improved student problem solving. So again, you can see the challenges that we're trying to address with the solutions that are making a huge impact within the education organizations. And teachers agree that personalized learning is among the most effective means for accelerating academic and cognitive growth. Research shows that students who receive personalized instruction perform better than 98% of students taught using traditional methods. And students using personalized learning practices in school also made greater progress over 2 years, with statistically significant effects in both math and literacy. Yet personalized learning remains elusive in most classrooms. Teachers strive to individualize instruction and give one-on-one feedback, but find it difficult to scale that using traditional methods and inadequate technology. Teachers cite shortage of researchers and time as the primary barriers to delivering personalized learning, and students confirm this, as only 40% of students report that they receive personalized learning. The pain points really include insufficient feedback, a lack of individualized content, and a one-size-fits-all pace for instruction. And 70% of students feel that they are currently not learning at the right speed. So to personalize learning for a classroom or entire school, teachers need that ability to automate routine tasks, plan dynamic lessons, and better understand and engage their students. And that right technology helps transform that classroom tools with free teachers to deliver tailored content, assess progress, capture insights, and provide that personalized learning. And a lot of that is really, really core to Teams. Teams really enables that personalized learning, that personal interaction with the teacher, with other students, and creates that wonderful collaboration space. Now, we talked a lot about this in previous slides. Again, it's all about the affordability device. We need to make sure these devices are affordable, the right devices, powerful enough devices to do what you need to do in the classroom, wrapping it around Office 365 so that you can utilize the technology online or offline. And with the unfortunate, having 10 million households out there without access to internet or up to par internet, it's important that we enable offline access. So again, kind of thinking about Microsoft in education and how we really influence that and help with our students and our teachers. Like I said, it's a lot of the learning tools that are integrated, tools to help students read, write, do math, supporting ink and pen capabilities and touch, the ability to work online and offline. And as Jody is going to talk here in a minute about how the ability to manage not only Windows 10 devices, but other platforms that you might have in your school district. And I'm really, really proud of Microsoft in all the assistive technologies that we're building into not only Windows 10, but our full suite of technology. We need to be empowering every student with the technology that enables the personalized learning, because we know not only within the classroom how many different reading grade levels there are, within a singular classroom, but also the number of disabilities that our students are struggling with, right? Whether it's vision or hearing or mobility or providing some neurodiversity, right? So to eliminate distractions. The equitability in education begins with access. We need to make sure we're giving the right tools, the best tools, and really, again, empower that student to learn the best way that they can. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Jody, who's going to get into her part of the presentation about the modern management of devices. Jody, it's all yours.
Great. Can everybody hear me okay?
We can hear you.
All right, half the battle's done. Well, thank you so much for that, Sean, and thank you, Insight, for having me today. And I'm very excited to talk to you about some of the solutions that we have for making it very easy to manage your multiple platforms. Just to quickly introduce myself, I'm Jody Lefevre. I'm a modern workplace technical specialist for the Midwest, based out of Southern Michigan. I cover K through 12, including higher education. And I've been in this role about 4 years. Prior to this, I worked as a System Center consultant for local Microsoft partners. And before that, I spent 6 years working at an intermediate school district in Grand Rapids, Michigan, managing my own environment and a help desk. So I know a little bit about what you're going through, and I hope that this gets you really excited. So let's talk about what is modern management. If everybody can see my screen, this is probably what most of your summers look like, maybe even December's, your breaks. You got the cluster of devices, you probably have switches and you're pixie booting, and it's just a big hassle to do this. So moving to modern management, we're going to talk about how you're going to transform from this old way of doing things, of creating that base image and deploying that image, and it's just a very time-consuming process. And this last year and a half has made it even more interesting for us, with so many devices now being one-to-one and going home and never coming back. So the new way, some of you might have heard of our Microsoft Autopilot. It's not the self-driving car in Vegas. I did that once. It was pretty cool, but a little scary. The new way is let's just say, for example, you're buying a bunch of new Surfaces, right? Because we're dreaming. And your reseller can have those devices pre-associated with your Microsoft tenant. This is a lot like the Apple device enrollment program. So once those devices are associated with your tenant, then the first time somebody opens the box, walks through the first couple out-of-box steps to connect it to the internet, it's going to talk to that Autopilot service and say, hey, it's school XYZ's device. And it will start bringing down any settings, which are kind of the equivalent of group policies, and any applications that are deployed for that device. Then when the user signs in with their work or school credentials, now it's going to say, hey, user, in Intune it says you now need these settings for you and these applications specifically for you. Intune and Intune for Education, I'll kind of use those terms interchangeably, are built into Windows, so there's no agent to deploy and no VPN needed to deploy these devices on or off-site. Is that pretty exciting? Well, I know I get excited about it because I wish this would have been around when I had my devices. Intune was just becoming a real thing back then. So quickly, we'll go through the modern device management lifecycle, and I promise then I'm going to get us right over into some live demo. We can only take so many slides, right? So this is kind of what it looks like is in the whole life cycle. So you have ways to enroll the devices. I mentioned the autopilot scenario where they're pre-associated with the tenant, or you can get a CSV file from your reseller and import those into Intune yourself. We can use things like Windows Configuration Designer and set up school PCs to create a provisioning package that you just put on a little USB stick. When you open the device, you pop the little USB in, you turn it on, it says, thank you, I copied it down locally, you can go to the next, and that will walk through all the steps of getting the devices enrolled for you. if you have SCCM or Configuration Manager, you can set up co-management to get the devices enrolled. And if you don't have SCCM, you can also set up auto-enrollment with GPOs to get those into that hybrid state, allowing you to manage them with Intune or Intune for Education. So that's great. After we get the devices enrolled in the platform, now what do? We need to provision some things. You know, we have our kind of, quote, base image where you have certain things kind of built in. We try to keep that layered lightly. But after the fact, then maybe you want to push out certain things to students versus staff, or things to laptops versus desktops. So you can deploy those applications. Now, when I get into showing the demos, I'll get into the specifics of what Intune for Education can do, and then what Intune can do to extend that. And I did mention deploying further settings. We have a tool in Intune that will analyze your GPOs and tell you what equivalents there are in Intune for you to deploy. And then after you provision some of those apps and settings, the devices are in the wild, and now you need to manage them. So at any given time, you can push out apps, remove apps, the same with settings. You can get reporting, and you can perform a lot of remote tasks on the devices like restarts, autopilot resets, and even getting just the device to check in. And then at the end of the whole cycle, maybe you need to surplus the devices. They're going off to Never Never Land, and they're not your problem anymore. And you want to remove that school data from the device. You can do that with a one-click button, and it will remove all that school or work data and application from the device and get it back to a completely factory reset state. So with that, I am going to share my screen and get over to some fun live demo. And bear with me, everybody. An insider, and I'm still getting the hang of it. Okay, here we go. If everybody can see my face, this is what I actually look like. In normal times, I would be on camera, but this platform does not allow for blurring out backgrounds, and I'm working probably at home like the rest of you. So we're going to start out with the Intune for Education dashboard. Intune for Education is just kind of an easy front end or a skin for the parent product Intune or Endpoint Manager that's been around a long time. We did a lot of research. All of school said we need something easier, because that's why a lot of you went to those googly things for some reason, because they were, quote, simple, easy, and cheap, right? So we did a lot of research to find out you need something simple. You need it to be friendly enough and easy enough that even a teacher can deploy and manage Windows devices. And that's exactly what we did. So when you see this Intune for Education dashboard, it's a little bit, I'd consider it pretty user-friendly. And when I click the Get Started button, it'll talk you through setting up school data sync. So this is another free service to help get information out of your student information system and pull it into Intune and like Teams. So you can use even more targeting and more attributes for deploying software. So if you had that in there, you could say, I want to deploy, I'm going to make up a name, Kickly Weeks or something to my second grade students. I could deploy that to that group based on those attributes, and that's all dynamic. So if you need help setting that up, there's a completely free service to help you with that called our Fast Track program, which I will talk about more. And you'll notice through this whole process that we have a lot of learn mores. We have a lot of really, really good usable documentation. So the first thing you do in here, and before I go any further, I want to say, think about how you do this with your current solution. And this is just one little step-by-step wizard to do all these great things. So whether you're using Configuration Manager, group policies, manually installing, having to have the devices on site, this is cloud only. So remember, the devices can be anywhere in the world as long as they have internet access. You are going to choose the group, which is the equivalent of collections in SCCM or, ADOUs. This is just the way Azure groups things. So we select our group. When I click Next, it has two different categories. We have Windows apps, which we have Microsoft Office built in, and this version is mostly designed for students that just need the Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and OneNote. The full version of Office we can configure in full Intune, but also deploy with Intune for education. So we can see the Microsoft Store apps that are already available. You see 0 of 5 assigned, so I would just pick Fresh Paint. We'll do the whiteboard, and as Sean said, Minecraft is a very exciting thing. And then I'm going to come down to desktop apps. Intune for Education has Edge built into it, and you can bring in anything that's an MSI. That's the only limitation in Intune for Education, that it can only bring in MSIs. If you needed to deploy executables or PowerShell scripts or bundles of files, that would be in full Intune. So I'm going to come back up, and I'm going to click on Web Apps. So these are just shortcuts to websites or apps. So you could put in your own, like I put in Schoology, we have Teams. So a lot of times these lower cost hero devices might not be the most powerful, so we try to limit the actual full installs we do on them, because these kids are used to using web apps, right? And I shouldn't say kids and staff. And you guys have been giving them Chromebooks for a while. They're doing everything on the web. So this is just another quick and easy way to make sure things are available right when they log onto the device, maybe even while apps come down in the background. Then we can go to Next. And you see it says Assigning. Right now, these apps and settings are going out to the devices anywhere they are. No VPN needed. So under Windows settings, there are just a handful of settings in here in this wizard. There are hundreds more in full Intune for Education here to tweak things. And then there's, I think, thousands more in full Intune. So when you think about what you're currently doing with group policy, and map them out to roughly what we do in here. So these are very personalized settings for school. You won't find a lot of these in full Intune, which has been more of an enterprise product. So let's say you're deploying a bunch of devices and you've been doing local AD for a long time. People are used to only typing that first part of their email. You can configure this preferred Azure Active Directory tenant domain name, which will then append that to the login so they don't have to type their full email. You can come in and customize the user experience, blocking removable storage, setting custom lock screens, desktop images, so on and so forth. You can block the settings app altogether, like Control Panel, or you can come in and just block portions of the settings Control Panel pieces. So after you configure some of those initial settings, kind of like your base image, only do the bare minimum here, and then we click Next, it's going to give you a summary. And when you click Done, you've just deployed apps and settings, both web apps and regular apps, to devices anywhere without a VPN. So I know that's pretty exciting, right? And to set this up, it's just a cloud interface. There's no infrastructure. There's nothing to keep maintained or upgraded. It just exists in the cloud. So what we did there is basically this express configuration. I'm going to walk through what it looks like in groups. So when I go into all devices, you can see I have one device in there. And this is my old back Atlas device. It's so sad that they went out of business because that was a very, very rugged, nice device. When you click into that device, you can see some information about it, serial number, how much storage, if the Defender status is clean, and who the primary user is logged on and what groups it's a member of. You can rename it, restart it, force it to sync, do the Autopilot Reset. So say you have a teacher machine out in the wild, she's working from home and she starts getting purple screens or her is just acting really funky. You can come in here and click this Autopilot Reset, and this just basically resets the actual OS without touching their data. And the process only takes between 7 to 15 minutes depending on the equipment, but it gets them back at a login screen pretty quickly and up and working, again, very quickly without having to bring that device back on site and, quote, re-imaging it. You can locate the device. Before, we only had this available for iOS and Android devices, but we now have this available for Windows too. There are a few requirements that you have to have turned on in your environment to make this work. So I'm going to leave that up for a minute so you can see how that works. You can see recent check-ins, and if you have deployed BitLocker with Intune, then you can look at the recovery keys right in here. So the help desk no longer has to go through the whole old MBAM process. They can just come look in this Intune for Education console and get the recovery keys. Going down at again device level, you can do batch. It's one of those days. I need more coffee. Batch instructions to send out to devices. You can do them individually. You can do things at a user level. So let me click on Adele, and you can see her recent check-ins. You can reset her password and see what group memberships she's a part of. And then we're going to go down to apps. I mentioned you can deploy MSIs, you can get Microsoft Store apps, and these all come from the Education Store. So if you wanted to bring a new application in here, I'm going to go ahead and show you what it looks like to bring in a new desktop app. You would just browse out, select the file, and because I know I have a couple googly people on here, I'm going to go ahead and show you that you can still deploy Chrome with our cloud solution to your Windows devices. And you can even use a single sign-on to get into all the Google stuff with your Microsoft 365 credentials. So you would just provide the latter half of the command line. You can set a publisher. You can select a file for the icon. And then you can say whether or not to check app version when installing. So this would be things like Chrome, Firefox that are self-updating. You would then just click Save, and it uploads the app into our cloud infrastructure. And there's no additional cost at uploading anything in here. There is currently an 8 gig limit on this, but if you happen to need more than that, you can put in a ticket and request additional storage. One great thing about Intune for Education is you can get really granular with the permissions on who sees what. So if you want an admin to only manage a certain group, you can set an admin just on that group. So when they sign into the console, that's all they'll see. There's also role-based access. So you can set up someone to just have help desk roles and vice versa. We have quite a few reports in here. No, it's not like SCCM. But there are a lot of reports in here, and these are all searchable and downloadable. And I did mention Intune for Education can do both Windows and iOS. So until you come in and actually configure the steps for iOS devices, the settings and whatnot won't show up in the console until this is configured. So that is Intune for Education at a very high level. And I want to show you here where it says See All. These are the things that are already on your favorites. But then if you see down here under Admin Settings, you can go right to Intune, also known as Endpoint Manager, which is the full MDM solution. So when we click on Devices, I just want to make you aware that you might very likely already own the licensing for this solution, which allows you to manage not just Windows, but your iOS and iPads, macOS, and Android. We've come a long way on macOS. It's not, no joke, apples to apples with, Jamf, but it can do a whole lot. And I'm finding more and more, there's a lot of Macs in the wild that just aren't even being managed. So I did mention you can only do MSIs in Intune for Education. In Intune, we have a lot of options. So under Apps, I'm going to go to All Apps just to show you everything that's in here. And these are my current apps, and it tells you what they are. If I go to Add an App and select the app type, we have all the different versions of our store apps. We have Microsoft 365 apps, which is what we're calling Office now for Windows 10 and later in Mac OS. We can deploy and manage Edge, Defender for macOS, and here is our web links, which are just our shortcuts to websites. We have the built-in apps, line of business apps, Windows app Win32. So if you are bringing in an executable or a bundle of files that have dependency, we have a little tool called the Intune Win32 utility that you just download. It's basically a command line utility that you point at the folder of files that you have, and it kind of essentially like zips it up, bundles it all up. You bring it in here, Intune uploads it, and then you just specify the command lines which to run against it. So when it's deployed out, it will then download it, extract it, run your command line, and right there's kind of the sky's the limit. So for this demo, I want to show you very quickly how easy it is to deploy and manage Office. So if you think about what you're currently doing now, Configuration Manager, or not sure what platform you're using, you no longer have to go to config.office.com. This will do it for you. So you can name the suite. A lot of people will do like staff and student ones. You can specify the suite, whether or not to show it as a featured app in the company portal. The company portal is just a store app that allows you to do self-service of applications, a lot like SCCM's Software Center. So when I click Next, you can pick, it defaults to the configuration designer, which it'll build for you, or if you did build your own XML and have tested it, you can go ahead and enter in your own XML data. I'm going to stick to configuration designer just to show you how easy this is. So now you will just pick and choose which components of Office you want. Most people aren't doing Access anymore. If this was for staff, we'll leave OneNote, Outlook, PowerPoint. Not so much Publisher anymore, and of course we're doing Teams and Word. And then you can select other Office apps. This is just Project and Visio Online. This is only applicable if they have an online license assigned to them. What architecture you want to do, maybe you have some really old hardware, still need 32-bit, you can, but you're just going to pick your update channel. And whether or not to remove other versions, this is basically that VBS script to remove any previous MSI versions. You can either install the latest or specific. So if you were having someone teaching an Office class and you wanted to make sure that they only get a specific version, you can do that. And then whether or not to use shared computer activation, accept the terms, background services, and select languages. English is default. So after I select Next, you can select scope tags if you use scope tags for grouping. And then you can assign it. So this is the same process for any application. You can make it required. So if you add a group here, it will push that app out no matter what. You can make it available for enrolled devices. And these are only fully enrolled devices, not just application management, which is self-service. And then you can push out and make the uninstall available or mandatorily push it out. So when I click Next, it asks you to review and create, and that would create your Office package and deploy it and manage the update channel for you on all those devices. So no more messy update packages to build in SCCM. And I promise I will leave a couple minutes for question and answers, but normally I would take about 2 hours to go through this content, so I'm trying to do my best. So we covered apps, and I want to make sure, speaking of Windows updates, we make it very, very easy in here to deploy and manage our updates. So some of you may be getting a little apprehensive with Windows 11 coming out in literally days. Well, one, it's not just going to automatically go out for your managed devices, but depends what you're managing them with. So if we wanted to go to our feature updates for Windows 10 and later, and let's say we wanted to stay at Windows 10 version 21H2, we can specify that. And now when we add a group, it will keep those devices at that feature update until you remove that. We have quality updates for Windows 10 and later preview, which lets you get pretty granular with the updates. And with preview, anything is still a little, just be careful when you're doing preview things, but only play with your test devices. But the base one for doing your update rings, when we go to the properties on here, you can see all these different settings that are available. So if you've been using a configuration manager or even WSS, these should look pretty familiar. So going one more time back to devices here, you can specify under device enrollment. Remember that cool self-driving car I talked about, Autopilot? This is where you would configure it. So one, they can pre-associate the devices for you, or if they provide the CSV, then you can just import that CSV in here to get those devices into your Autopilot environment. After you've managed to get devices in, this is how simple it is to deploy Autopilot. So I'm just going ahead and create a new profile to walk you through. I know most of you will be excited to know you can finally provision your thousands of HoloLens that you have sitting around for all your students and staff. Yeah, I wish I had it too. So when I click on Windows PC, we're going to give it an extravagant name like test. You can say whether or not to convert all your targeted devices to Autopilot. So that way any devices that you deploy this out to, if your devices are in that group, it will automatically add them to the Autopilot program. So I'm going to click Next, and you can pick which mode. Generally, you're doing user-driven. Self-deploying is more for shared devices, but we have had some just a couple, hurdles here and there with getting it to work correctly on shared devices. But now this world is mostly one-to-one, so I don't want to say that problem solved itself, but hey. You can do join the Azure AD, so cloud-only scenario. If you have the Intune AD connector set up, you can do the hybrid. So it'll essentially join Azure AD and then do the backwards join to your local environment. But with all the ransomware and terrible stuff running around that we keep hearing about in all our schools, the security levels that Azure AD and Intune only managed devices provide is off the charts. We don't do the local admins anymore for people to hack. Once they're in the Autopilot process, the kids, well, not just kids and staff can't take them and make them their own. If at any point they were to reset Windows on that device or reinstall Windows, as soon as it walks through these out-of-box steps that are covered here and talks to the Autopilot service, it's only going to let them sign in with their work or school credentials. So Autopilot is just handling the out-of-box experience steps. So most of us want to hide a lot of the stuff that nobody really cares about. You can pick whether they're going to be administrator or not administrator. I really, really, really tell everybody, please don't make anybody administrators other than, IT people. And even then, you can still do like a run as account if you absolutely have to, but try not to make too many people administrators. Allow the white glove. What this does is, instead of you issuing the Autopilot reset, the end user can hit the Windows key 5 times, which will then kick them back into that Autopilot experience. And you can apply a device naming template. If any of you have used Windows Configuration Designer, this is going to look very similar. So yes, there's not a lot of naming templates or naming options available, but that's because we don't need them anymore. This is a work anywhere, device anywhere, and we're not so much naming them by building and room number and everything like we used to. Most people are doing just serial number or a prefix and a serial number because everything is searchable in Intune. You can go in and just search by serial number and it'll show you who's the primary user on the device. So I'm going to just do, let's go Jody dash, and then we will % serial. Oh, I forgot. Can't leave a hyphen in there. Sorry. My bad. And I'm just going to skip right over because I'm typing something wrong. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of that enrollment profile because I already have them out there. You can see the other types of enrollment for Apple, Android. Enrollment restrictions is something that everybody should check, whether you have stood up Intune or are just going to be standing this up for the first time. When you come in here and you click on this All Users and go to Properties, this is where, by default, it allows people to register their personally owned devices. So if you've just basically turned on Intune or assigned licenses but never really configured anything and wonder why you have devices showing up in there already, it's probably because somebody was signing into an Office app and there's a little checkbox to say allow their device to be managed. That's how they get in there. But these are just registrations. They're not full joins. So it's not like you can do terrible, terrible things to the devices. But it's just good to know most people like it to come in here and turn those off and turn them on as they are prepared with the right policies. We talked about security. Sean brought up a lot of great points about security. So we can do security baselines, multiple tasks. Under management, we can handle the antivirus, disk encryption, BitLocker. You can set up firewall rules, EDR rules, attack surface reduction rules, account protection. I like account protection. I know this is, it looks like it's out of preview now. So when you select the platform Windows 10 and later, yep, that's where the preview is. So this is all about the Windows Hello, which we are all tired of passwords, right? I mean, nobody wants to enter a password or remember passwords anymore. So I hope everybody is trying to do the Windows Hello. So if you set this to disabled, you can set minimum, maximum pin lengths, all the different rules, enabling pin recovery, whether to use biometrics. And I have to tell you, I have a school in southeastern Michigan that enabled Windows Hello, and they're able to use it for K through 2. So all the little tykes have to do is look at their screen, and it logs them into their laptop. If for some reason that's not working, they only have it set to a 4-digit PIN, so it's not so hard to remember. But if you're sick of the help desk calls and you want to get rid of all the password stuff, look at Windows Hello. So going back to our endpoint security, we have device compliance, so you can set things that say make sure devices are at a certain version of Windows 10 or have so many updates installed. You can set conditional access policies to say maybe if a machine were to go outside the U.S., that it locks down all your corporate data, that they can't access it because it's not likely. I know we have foreign exchange students, but that was just an example to throw out there. We have some pretty good reporting. So we have our device compliance, that group policy analytics that I mentioned, where you can bring your ADMX XML in here and analyze it and see what equivalents are. Windows updates. If this is not enough, we have our awesome log analytics to provide a lot more detailed Windows update information. And cloud attached. I did mention how co-management is a possibility for setting up that relationship between SCCM and Intune. If you have that cloud attached set up, then you can see all your devices in here, and you can even bring all your collections over. If you haven't set up the cloud attached part, I highly recommend you do it because it takes a little while to get all your devices enrolled, and we have to be ready for the next school shutdown and all the devices run away again. So at a very high level, this is a lot of the stuff that you can do in Intune and Intune for Education. Before I open it up totally to questions and answers, I just want to mention if you have our Microsoft 365 A3 or A5 with only 150 seats, then your licensing entitles you to a program called Microsoft Fast Track. And if you can think of what Fast Track is it's literally providing guidance and kind of hand-holding through setting up and migrating like anything from on-premises to the cloud. So if you wanted to go from SCCM to Intune, that's covered. Even setting up the co-management part. And we cover things like the school data sync, Teams, like going Exchange on-prem to Exchange online. And, it's your lucky day. Insights happens to be a Fast Track Ready partner. So if any of these services sound like, hey, I'm ready to get rolling with Intune right now, they can help you with that, getting that Fast Track engagement set up. So I know we only have 5 minutes left. Sean, did we have any questions rolling in?
Yep, we actually do have one in the chat, and I'll read it out to you. Is the endpoint protection cross-platform? I know there's a Chrome extensions. Would this give me insight into a Chromebook with that extension pushed out to Chromebooks?
That is a very good possibility. I know right now we already have the ability to see the Chromebooks in our Intune console. We can't currently do any device actions on them, but that's a high probability. I haven't tested that myself because I don't have a Chromebook, but I would say test it and see if it works. And if it doesn't, then you can get with people like me, and I can try to talk to our PMs and figure out how we can get it possibly done.
And then is there any additional cost for the endpoint security extension applications, et cetera? I know a lot's included in Microsoft 365.
Yeah, there shouldn't be any additional costs for anything in here. Intune is one of those, I don't want to say few products, that it's like all encompassed in your either A3, well, it is the A3 licensing. Additional security features are unlocked with the A5, but there's usually no additional cost to anything just related to Intune.
All right, and then does Intune for Education deploy apps at the user level or device level, or can it do both?
It can do both. So when I mentioned how you initially push things out, like in the autopilot process, so you have certain apps or settings coming down for that device, that is a device-based group that is targeted for those apps and settings. And then you can also push apps and settings out to users and user groups.
Awesome. Is it possible to upgrade Windows feature versions via Intune, such as moving from Windows 10 2004 to Windows 10 21H1?
Yes, when you configure, let me see if I still have it here, devices and update rings. So one, if you had that feature update policy in place setting to a certain level, as soon as you removed it, then that would allow those devices to automatically upgrade. And if we go into the ring settings, here's where you defer the feature updates. So you can go out 365 days. Is the furthest you can push these out. So let's say you have this in place. Now it's Christmas, and if you drop that to 180 because it's been more than that days since the update's been out, as soon as you drop this down to that, or if you were to drop it to 0 and hit save, then that would actually push out the upgrade, no matter where the devices are. So this does make it so much easier to keep your devices up to date and maintained without having to manage any of that on-prem fun stuff.
Awesome. Well, I think that is it in the chat. Q&A.
Wonderful. Well, I encourage you to reach out to Insights if you have any follow-up questions, or if we need a deeper dive into any of these. I can go deeper in almost any of the areas with the exception of Macs. I don't have one of those sitting on my desk either to test with, but if that's an area of people getting excited about, I can definitely bring in somebody to help do a deeper dive on that also.
Oh, actually, I got one more question, Jody. Does Azure Active Directory have to be set up first before?
Yes.
And I'm not sure if that was a complete question, but I'm assuming yes.
Yes, you have to have the Azure Active Directory, the AD connector, up working and syncing if you want a hybrid scenario. If you want to just go cloud only, then you do have to set up Azure AD, but that is also another fast track offering to get that configured properly for you too.
Perfect. Yep.
And one last thing, Yeah, one last thing I'll throw in there. I know we only have a minute left, but let's say you're not quite ready to go totally cloud only, but you like this kind of modern idea of managing devices. You can use just the free app for Windows Configuration Designer to provision a device completely free of charge until you're ready to make the move. That still works with your local AD.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone. And again, if there's other questions that haven't been answered, or after this presentation, if there's anything comes to mind, again, please reach out to your Insight rep. They can easily get in touch with me, leverage the resources that Insight has available to them as well. And again, hopefully you saw some of the great things that not only Microsoft is doing from education, but also how to modern manage your devices. Because again, I think that's the quickest and easiest way to be successful with, saving time for IT deployment, saving time for management of devices. And again, this is really the new way, right? Trying to make deploying and managing Windows devices as easy as possible. Looking at a full portfolio of devices, again, having any Windows device from our OEMs that crosses any configuration, price point, and persona within your district. And then again, if you haven't used Teams, please look at Teams. Teams is so absolutely powerful in the education space. One of the only products that we've specifically have a education version or education feel to it. And it's just really, again, super exciting to showcase and implement this technology in the classroom, because it is changing the way students are learning, teachers are teaching, and administration is running the school. So thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and attention. Great questions in the chat. Jody, thank you so much. I really appreciate tag teaming with you today. And like I said, please reach out to your Insight rep if you want to go further or deeper on anything that you heard today. We are here to help and assist you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.